Good morning and welcome to the first live stream of this year. We took a little break from live streaming and talking about all the stuff that matters to us on LinkedIn, on YouTube. But it's a really good time to talk about the topic we're talking about today. And it is about to be budget season. If you're already not planning for it, you are about to start planning for budget season, right? You're getting ready for your workshops, and your departments are working on their individual budgets, and they're supposed to send them to you if you're a CFO. And it's just going to be a busy time starting April. It's already February, and you need to, assuming you're on the June through July 1 through June 30 fiscal year, uh, it's going to be a real busy time for our folks in um, finance in the second quarter of this year, of this calendar year. So I thought this is timely because we need to talk about what sort of technology decisions and budgeting do you need to do right now, or what do you need to start thinking about right now to make sure that your budget is solid, that you're not spending money on the wrong things, that you're not remaking the same spending mistakes on technology stuff that is changing very, very rapidly. And I'm talking about changing every day. So this is a really good time to talk about what 2627 should look like, according to me. And this is based on experience, on research, on trends, on where I see technology heading. And the big elephant in the room is AI. And most people don't know how we're going to tackle AI. But the old saying still holds true when it comes to AI. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And we have a methodology on what bites to take first because you don't want to swallow the whole thing at once. Um, anyway, my name is Avi. I'm the founder and CEO at Avero Advisors. We are an independent third party consulting firm that focuses on local governments. We help agencies modernize their technologies, um, strategize for improvements and digital transformation, and we help you select the right products for your operations because not everything is meant for everybody. And it comes down to vision, strategy, and then the tactics you use to go from 1970s tech to 2026. So if you're joining, let me know where you're calling from today. I'd love to keep this interactive. Put your questions in the chat box. I'm watching that as we go. And yeah, let me know what's on your mind, and I will be asking some questions of my own. So make sure you're engaging. Um, so why is this important right now? Like I said, the decisions you're going to make in the next 6 months will have lasting repercussions, impacts on your organization, on your careers. Um, it determines whether your city, county, state, utility, transit agency, airport, port authority, um, are you set up to take advantage of all of the moving pieces in technology for the next decade? Or are you going to keep doing the same things over and over again? I know in local government, there's a small subset of organizations that are jumping headfirst into AI. And we can see that from early adopters, lots of pilots, successful, not successful. Some have gone after low hanging fruit like customer service, some have gone after more ambitious projects. And the stories are plenty on how this has gone. In many ways, AI is still a little underbaked. Simply not, it's not a technology race anymore. Yeah, the tech keeps improving, it keeps getting better. But how you apply it to your organization is the key question. So when you're budgeting for 26, 27, I think that is that's the key framework. That's the key lens that you need to be looking at this through. What is it going to do for my organization? And again, this is not any different from what we've been talking about. Vision, strategy, tactics, and then the tool sets that follow that help you get to those strategies, that help you get to that vision is really, really important. Um, so making sure that you're making the right decisions, and that's, it's easy for me to say the right decision is such a vague term, but there's some methodologies, there's some trends, and we're going to talk about what those are today. AI obviously is going to be front and center. It's mission critical. It's not all the way there for local governments. I'll tell you simply because we're not ready. We're not ready with our data. We're not ready with our governance. We're not ready with our understanding of what it can do for us. Uh, you go at it product first, and that may or may not work. It doesn't work most of the time because the product is designed to do a certain um, use case, a certain function, and it needs to adapt to you. The other thing I've realized is that every AI implementation has to be its own implementation. I know these are SaaS products or being sold as SaaS products, but if an AI product is being introduced into your organization, it needs to train on your data. Your data needs to be clean. It needs to be um, secure. It needs to be useful for the AI to be training on and then being useful. So yeah, the model is software as a service. It's applicable to multiple agencies, multiple industries. Um, but really, if you're not aligned with your workflows, if you're not aligned with your data, none of that's going to work for you. And we're realizing that as a company, as we're trying to implement automation tools and implement AI into our workflows. And remember, the people aspect of that workflow never goes away. There still needs to be taste and context and experience that needs to go in to any workflow to make it useful, AI or not. So AI is just a tool, but it doesn't work if you don't have these things lined up. And it's not a very popular thing to say among the AI circles, right? Everybody's talking about technology. Everyone's talking about the product, what this product versus that product does, what it can do for your organization. The promises are great. They're actually real because it's got the capacity, it has the ability to do those things. But if you don't have your data stuff lined up, if you don't have your workflows lined up, if you don't have your people lined up and ready to use these tools, it is not going to work. And again, we're discovering that ourselves as we are trying to implement AI products within our organization. Um, Welcome, Eric, Osvaldo, Sarah. Thanks for joining this morning. Keep it interesting. Ask me questions. Interrupt me. Um, let's make it fun. So, yeah, AI is now it's mission critical. It is going to be the foundation of how we operate, and it's a marketing race. I've talked about this before. The bigger companies, the large software vendors, they all have AI baked in. They're doing great stuff with their product within their ecosystem. So if you're not a subscriber to Oracle Fusion or Workday or SAP's S4HANA, what do you do if you're working with some 20 plus year old enterprise system that is the system of record for your organization and you want to deploy AI? Now, one of the things that governments have as an advantage is historically they've been able to leapfrog technologies, right? Because of how slow they are adopting by design, because they are not supposed to be risk taking with technology. They're supposed to be making technology useful so that they can deliver results to their customers, the citizens. So with AI, that's changing a little bit because of the proliferation of micro SaaS, um, all of the AI enabled apps and the promises of that AI presents. I've seen companies and agencies jump in and try things. You can do that as long as, again, you're containing it so that if there's damage, it's contained, that it's not spread throughout the organization. But again, back to my major point, it's mission critical. We need to start talking about it. We need to take this seriously. And now we need to start budgeting for it, not product first. And I'll talk about what that needs to look like. The second major thing we'll talk about is cyber security. Huge talking point, buzzword over the last 10 years, rightfully so. But in the last year and a half, 2 years, AI has overtaken that buzzword, and not just as a keyword, but also NASCIO has shifted. Right, they're saying now that AI is the number one priority. Cybersecurity was the number one priority for 12 straight years. And now it's AI. So AI has unseated, excuse me, cybersec as a priority, a budgeting and operational priority over after 12 years. Um, so what are the 5 critical areas for 26, 27? We'll talk about the planning. We'll give you some real examples. I'll take some real examples. And then we'll talk about some common mistakes to avoid. And I've already talked about one, don't go product first. Um, but really, these 5 areas will help you set the baseline for not just the next fiscal year, but the next 10 years, the next decade, because you're setting the foundation of how your organization is going to operate using your institutional knowledge, your data, your tribal knowledge, and how you're going to layer on top of that AI products and services that enable you to do more with less. That phrase is more true today, but keep in mind, this is not plug and play. And I've been down this rabbit hole intensely on how you operate, how you implement AI products, how you make them useful, how you actually do more with less. What does that look like? Where do you put the humans in the loop? What's the role of humans in this new world that we are living in? And there's a big role for humans to play. But the automation is very, very cool. It it can replace a lot of your mundane tasks, a lot of your workarounds, a lot of your spreadsheets, as long as you do this mindfully and right. Before I get in there, I'm gonna take a question from Sarah Roser. When budgets are tight, how should local governments decide which technology risks are acceptable to carry for another year versus which ones become non-negotiable investments in the upcoming year? What a great question. Budgets are always tight. Resources are always limited. So, of course, there'll be years when there's more better funding events like we just had with unfortunately with COVID. But the baseline is that budgets are tight, and how you decide on what to keep running versus what to go buy, it all depends on the risk profile, right? Is something going to break that's going to not allow you to pay your people? Is something going to break that will disable your ability to collect on taxes? Critical things. Think about these things much ahead. Like, if you're in a fiscal year and something broke, that just tells me you didn't plan for this, because software systems don't break. I mean, they do break overnight, but you see it coming. If you're mindful, if you're planning it, if you're watching it, if you are being methodical about managing your application stack, they shouldn't fail overnight. You should have a plan B. You should have a fail safe. But this is a strategic question. How do you know if you've done all the planning and if you've done all the fail safing? It's not a word, I just made that up. But if you've done all of the right things, how do you plan to take that risk? It's all about risk management. And somebody needs to make the call. It's typically the CIO, sometimes it's a CFO, saying we can make this run one more year while we secure the funding for a new product. So really comes down to what the use case is. Have you planned for it or not? Are you talking about an emergency? Hopefully not, because if that's the case, then your options are very limited, right? So the point of this session is to help you think through what those risk elements are and how do you plan for that. And you could have a system that's failing, but it's been propped up, it's backed up in the cloud. You have some managed service providers managing that risk. There's several different things you can do to keep things running, but the key point is that you have to be strategic about it. You have to know when you're going to either repair or upgrade or replace it, right? This is not any different than what we've talked about in enterprise asset management discussions, where it's an asset. What's the useful life? Is it still doing the thing it's supposed to do for you? What are the risk factors? How is it going to fail when it fails? And what are you doing to secure that risk? And part of the strategy could be planning 2 years out, securing the funding to go get a new thing. And I'm talking about an ERP system, a financial system, enterprise asset management, what have you. The concept is the same. You have to be mindful and plan well on how you're going to manage that risk. Thanks for that question. So back to the 5 areas. Um, and look, the financial reality is that post-pandemic finances are healthier. People are still holding on to some funds from ARPA and whatnot, and or they've planned, capital planning long-term wise. It's pretty healthy as far as I can tell. And if there is a slowdown in the economy, if there's a downturn, what my experience of 20 plus years working in local gov is that it takes time for that to hit the budgets because of revenue cycles and tax collection. So I think we're in a good spot to be talking about what we'll be talking about in terms of the 5 key areas and their impact on the budget. If anything, doing this right will allow you to do more with less, one, but also, cost savings are tremendous. If you can pull off AI automation, if you can pull off um, offloading your major enterprise systems into the cloud or into SaaS. Again, I know you'll say that it's not always cheaper, but yes, it's more efficient. It saves you labor. It saves you a lot of things, infrastructure that you're not considering when you just say it's not cheaper than being on premise. And we'll get to that point too. There's a movement you'll hear about data sovereignty, right? In the last 10 years, we've only been talking about moving to the cloud, buying SaaS software as a service, where you don't buy the product, you're buying a service, you're subscribing to a product, but your data is living in someone else's cloud. Your data is living in the Oracle cloud, or the Workday cloud, or Microsoft, and you don't have sovereignty over that data. Their models get trained on the data, and this is a blanket statement. There may be some caveats there where products don't train their models, AI models on the data, but largely that is true. Um, so data sovereignty is going to be huge. So financial reality is okay, but what you don't want to do is cut corners right now. The scrutiny is also up, right? Everyone's looking at government, Doge, efficiency is top of mind, cost saving is top of mind, scrutiny is up. People want to see ROI, prioritization, risk, strategy. They don't want to see governments just spend money. Um, so budgeting is really important. Telling a story about why you budgeted a certain thing is really important. So let's dive into it. The first one is AI. I'm gonna stay on my soapbox for a while. It's not optional, but it should be governed. When you're budgeting for 26, 27, don't budget for a product you saw at a conference last year. That product is already obsolete, probably, right? You saw something last fall at a conference, looked cool. Don't take that and put it in your budget saying, I'm going to buy that thing next year. By the time you implement it, that's 2 years later, right? Or a year later. And it's not the same product. The LLM models have changed. The landscape has changed. There's lots more automation. There's lots more availability of options. So when you're budgeting, you're not budgeting for products, but what you're budgeting for is readiness, governance, data cleanliness, getting ready, making sure you are at the maturity level that you should be to take advantage of certain um, products in the market. And you need to find use cases and fund use cases. So what happens typically is, again, you'll see a product, they'll sell you on a pilot, and it's a solution looking for a problem, right? You don't know exactly what it's going to do. Now, again, blanket statement. There are very good use cases for very good products out there. And for some really low hanging fruit that doesn't really impact the whole organization, right? You can take a small piece of your operation and find a use case and pilot some product. That's fine. But when you pilot something without a use case or a set of use cases, you're asking for trouble, because how do you know that it's successful? How do you know that this works or can be scaled? So funding use cases is really important. And how do you get to your use case? Um, Good old workflow mapping, good old workflow analysis, good old looking at your operations, looking at where you want to go with this organization, and finding those within the workflow. What are those areas of the process that are extremely manual, that are extremely workaround laden, that depend on spreadsheets and paper? That's your use case. You cannot automate the whole thing. You need people, you have other systems, you have to make do with what you have. But finding use cases that are practical, achievable, that are measurable, the whole smart thing, um, is really, really important. Got a question coming in. Megan, hey, asks, what question should be considered when planning for an AI model for your organization? I'm getting to it. Um, the questions are around readiness. It's not about the model, right? It's are you ready to take this on? And I'm saying this as a consultant, right? But I've also been studying this quite a bit. Success happens when you have all of the pieces in place before you let an AI model um, into your organization, into your workflow. Examples of use cases could be, caseworkers saving minutes per report. I mean, casework in human health and human services or public housing, it's a massively manual process. You have to talk to people, you have to fill out forms, you have to field calls, you have to make calls. And I've seen examples of use cases where AI has been deployed in these specific use cases that have made lives really better. So, saving minutes per report saves thousands of hours per year. What that means is, and caseworkers are hard to find. Your frontline workers for customer service, for casework, in any industry, that is a very important but difficult skill. And those people need all the help they can get with automation. So maybe that is the use case. So that's an example of use case. Um, but in 26, the trend is going to be agentic. Again, buzzword, keyword, we've heard about this. We've seen videos where people are connecting different agents and they're talking to each other. It's a really hard thing to pull off, right? Um, you need the agents, the LLMs to be stable, first of all. You need the agents to understand how to talk to each other. So in the end, it's a software development project that involves AI. But with the advent of things like OpenClaw now, that is becoming really easier than it was 2 weeks ago. So agentic AI simply means you have automated agents, which are pieces of software that use AI that do this manual work, that take on the burden of the grunt work, talk to each other, pass information, and make your workflow automated. Easier said than done. And we've been trying to implement some of that internally, and it is not easy. Um, it takes a lot of deliberate design. It takes a lot of experimentation. It takes a lot of data in a clean format to be able to be useful. So how do you tackle this? Back to Megan's question. What steps do you take? Here's my recommendations for 2026. If you haven't gone down the AI path, if all you've done is research and talking to some vendors and sitting through webinars and shows like this, um, the first thing to do, because it's not easy to understand where to begin. This is the same problem when you're trying to modernize your ERP system. There's so much going on. There's so many interfaces. There's so much complication that you don't know where to begin. You don't know what string to pull first. Again, it's like untangling Christmas lights in December. Where do you begin? Is it going to work? So the first thing to do is invest in governance and policies. The first thing to do. How are you going to use this? What are the guardrails? What's our readiness level? And what sort of pilots are we going to do? Number one, governance is key. And by the way, tomorrow we're doing a webinar on just this topic, governance in AI for local governments, where to begin, trends, methodologies. We'll give it to you all. So we'll dive deep into um, the webinar tomorrow. The link's on my LinkedIn. Go check it out, sign up for it. It's going to be great. So governance and policies is first. The next is security and privacy. Um, this applies across the board, but it particularly applies to AI. Because when you start giving access to your environment to AI models, you have to make sure that they can't go rogue, that they can't access things they're not supposed to. Government agencies host a lot of private data, personally identifiable information, PII, social security numbers, dates of birth, anything that can be used to hack someone's personality or identity rather is hosted in government systems. So security is extremely important. It ties in with governance. It ties in with the readiness piece, because if your data is unstructured, if it's not in a good place, if your security sucks, you don't need to be messing with AI products. Fix that first. So this is all also part of a larger IT strategy, right? And as we're doing IT strategies in 25, 26, these are becoming foundational elements of what that strategy is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. So security and privacy, having a plan, having a policy for that is extremely important. And then the next thing to focus on and budget for is workforce skills. We're talking about modernization, going from older systems that were command prompts or older UIs, older technologies, to modern, automated. Um, they look cool. Like your work system should feel like you're using Amazon or Apple products. So, how do you train your workforce to go from what they know to something new? And how do you make sure they're ready for the shift? Because as you implement newer technologies, as you implement AI products and automation, people's jobs change. It's not just the tool set, their actual job is changing. They may be more suited to another part of the organization, they may be more suited to another function, because the thing that they were doing is now mostly automated. So how do you talk about it? How do you get people ready? How do you train them? How do you do change management? Because you are changing people's lives. We've talked about this before. In any major transformation, change management is key. So treating your people like people and making sure that any new technology doesn't really disrupt their lives is a really, really important thing to do, because I truly believe that no agents, agentic AI, nothing is truly going to replace people. Yeah, if I'm a citizen, I don't want to spend time filling out a form, but I do want to spend time talking to the person that has the context, the experience, the relationship, the human touch to try and solve my problem. Um, so, making sure your workforce is ready with their skills and the soft skills is extremely important. I'm going to stop here, take a question. Sarah asks, how can local government avoid locking themselves into AI tools that become obsolete or unsupported within a few budget cycles? Great question. And it's not even a few budget cycles. It's a real problem, right? Because most of these tools, um, unless they're building their own LLMs, which is again a difficult thing to do, it requires a lot of resources. But most tools are using commercially available in the cloud LLM platforms. So OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, Grok, you name it. There's several. There's hundreds. And yes, there's a huge chance of that model becoming obsolete or discontinued or going out of business that your whole stack is built on. So as you're picking product, you need to make sure that you understand the architecture and technology enough that at least gives you an understanding of what that risk is, right? And on the vendor side, it's on them to make sure that their product doesn't become obsolete, because it will. Things are changing so rapidly that things are becoming obsolete very, very quickly. I had a call with a young gentleman yesterday who was building a product to support sales functions that scrapes data from your CRM, from LinkedIn, from the internet, gives you context about who you should be talking to, what the fit is. And my question to him was, why is that a product? Why can't I do this? And what is the secret sauce? Like, what are you building that is special, that warrants that it's a product, a standalone product, that you have a company around it. Um, and the answer simply was context and data. Really, it's deep domain expertise that allows a certain piece of the industry to do business better is the answer. So becoming obsolete is a known thing. It's an accepted thing in technology, but with AI, it's on a daily basis, which is scary, but also something we can plan for. Um, all right, so that's getting. So we were on point number 3, workflow skills, 3 of 5, things you should be paying attention to, planning for, funding. Data quality. Number 4, data quality. This is huge, and I can talk about it for days. No modernization is going to be successful, AI or not, if your data is not good. And by good, I mean, is it useful? Is it transferable? Is it in the right format? Is it easy to ingest? Is it easy for different systems to understand? And I've done a long video on just that. If you go on my YouTube channel, you'll see it. Megan or someone, if you guys don't mind putting it in the chat box, um, it talks about what that means, right? If you were working, let's say a utility company, you have an older system, and that product that you've been using for the last 20 years is very forgiving. What I mean by that is in your phone number field, it allowed you to put notes. So you would put your phone number and notes like so and so's husband called and changed the phone number. This is the new number. It's fine. In the older system, you could go look it up. But modern systems, or most properly designed systems, don't allow that, right? Phone numbers should exist in a phone field. It should be a limited number digital field that should not accept any characters. So when you go to transfer your data from the old system to the new system, and you've got all kinds of junk in the phone field, which is a very important field, by the way, for customer care and billing systems, right? The new system doesn't recognize this. So now you're going to spend months cleaning this up manually in order for you to be able to take it over to the new system. And that's just an example, right? And it can get even more complicated when you talk about street names, when you're not using like postal codes or uh, the post office certified address. I forget what it's called. Someone correct me. But my point is, you're moving garbage data into a pristine environment, and it's not going to take it. And even if it does, then it's not useful. You're still stuck with the same old data. So buying AI products, doing this and that with AI enabled uh, things, it's not going to work for you. Your AI is going to give you more garbage. Your outputs will be garbage. So data quality is extremely important. So where do you begin with that? What do you fund for data quality? Data quality assessments exist. There's products that do nothing but data quality, that'll tell you, product and service, that your data either is in great shape or it needs some adjustments. Here's the degree to which it will be easily ingested into the system you're trying to acquire next. So data quality uh, assessments, getting readiness is extremely important. No matter what, even if you're not buying a new system, obviously, you need to make sure that your data is pristine and useful. So make sure you're thinking about that and how you can fund that project. Again, bite sized. How do you get to becoming an AI native organization? It doesn't happen overnight. It will not happen overnight if your data is not in a place where it can be useful to train the models, to automate things, to give you the outputs that you need um, from the AI product. So extremely important data quality. Thought there were questions. It's just chatter. Yeah, Eric, how's UKG approaching AI? And I know we've talked about this when you were on the live stream last year, I think, about baking it into the product. I'd be curious to hear more about that. Okay, so that was 4. What is number 5? Ethical use and transparency. This is huge because as you implement AI, questions remain on what models, the ethical nature of that particular model, how that fits into your policies and ethics, and then transparency. How transparent is it? Like, who gets to see what? This is transparency has been around for a long time, right? People have been talking about us, organizations wanting to show their financials on the website, drill down capabilities. You can go completely off the rails here because I had a client that was so transparent. They had an AS400 ERP, was tied to their website, that was showing every transaction on the website. Fine, that's how transparent they wanted to be. But the problem was that it was also a vector for attacks. It was open. That particular system was not very secure. So you can go completely off the rails if you don't take transparency seriously. So data quality tied with security, ethical use, and transparency, that's what you need to achieve. And if there's nothing else you do in 26, 27, have a strategy for that. Do some assessments. Make sure you're ready. And we published several white papers around this, but the AI assessment that I am putting on the screen now is a really good place to start. It's the maturity assessment that will tell you where you stand today as far as your AI maturity is concerned. There's 5 different levels. If you haven't done anything with AI, you're at level 1. But there's ways to get to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it tells you which product types you can then use if you're at a certain maturity level. We take this really seriously because you can't just jump to level 5 without having done any of the heavy lifting that you need to do in levels 1, 2. And that never stops, by the way. Data quality, security, it's an ongoing thing. You have to keep doing it. You have to make sure that your um, data is of the highest quality at all times and that you are in a secure posture. More questions coming in. Caleb asks, do you have an opinion on where the focus should be for underprivileged local governments who may lack the funding or infrastructure to be pioneers among their peers, but don't want to be left further behind during this current era? Automation, advanced machine learning. Very good question. And by underprivileged, I think you mean to say underfunded, smaller, right? They don't have the um, large organizations in IT or the hotshot CIOs. I think it's okay to be behind right now. It really is, because what I've seen is those organizations that have jumped feet first into or head first into automation and AI pilots. They've had the resources. I'm not talking money. You need to have the resources on staff or on contract to be able to tackle this efficiently and effectively. This is not a DIY project. It can be, but that'll be your only job. You won't get to do your day job, right? So my opinion on that is exactly what I'm talking about. The way to do this is by getting ready. The way to do this is by having use cases, having governance, and thinking about it right, taking the slower approach. It's okay to be slow and not jump at it. You don't want to be on the bleeding edge and bleed out, right? You want to see what others are doing. You want to learn from the industry and from experts and do it the right way. Um, so, at the end of the day, AI is an amplification program. It's not an elimination program. Companies that are going at it, saying we're going to replace half the workforce with AI, missing the point. You may be overstaffed in the first place. AI is not the cause for that. But if you use AI as leverage, you can 100x productivity, cost savings, efficiencies if you do this right. So it's an amplification program, and that's how it needs to be used. That's how we intend to use it at Avero. Thanks for that question. Next one is, speaking of transparency, how do local governments involve their constituents in decisions around AI? That's a really tough one. When you involve constituents, and I am a constituent, right? I'm maybe more well read or experienced in local government stuff. But most of the time, people don't understand why governments do what they do, right? All I want is for my trash to be picked up. All I want is for the website to work when I need information and a link to work when I click on it. All I want is for my taxes to be accurate and for them to be used effectively. So when you do surveys, and we've done this as part of IT assessments and strategic plans, surveys of the constituents, what comes back is usually things like we need Wi-Fi in the parks. And now I'm sure it's going to be we need a useful chatbot so I don't have to talk to anybody at City Hall. So the constituents' desires are limited to what they need out of the city, which is very understandable. Why would I spend more time talking to my local government? Of course, unless I want to be involved in a civic sense. But operationally, um, I think when the city or county or organization decides on what route they're going to take, what kind of tools they're going to employ, there should be some communication on how they're doing it and what guardrails they're putting in place. Because depending on where you are, the sentiment differs, right? Some areas are more tech forward than not. Some are more rural and don't really want government spending any money. So the stories you tell around how you're using AI, how you're going to deploy AI, what's in it for the citizen is extremely important in terms of sending that message. Eric says, thanks. Maybe 80% of public sector employees are frontline workers who need AI tools that accelerate efficiencies, control costs, and properly deploy their workforces to improve taxpayer services. That's it. That's a nutshell. The show's over. Eric just said it. Um, the frontline workers need the tools to make their jobs easier, so they can be case workers, they can be client facing, they can be utility workers serving the customer, not filling out forms and compiling data. That's the low hanging fruit. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. You have to be deliberate. Sadly, what's happened in the last 2 years is that the hype around AI has made people believe that they can just do this on ChatGPT without doing any of the hard work, that AI is going to just do it for them. And I wish that was true, and I hope someday that is true. But today, in in 2026 or 26, 27, 28, I don't see it going there. Government agencies need to be extremely deliberate about how they deploy AI. So thanks for that, Eric. Um, so let's talk about cybersecurity and compliance. This is the second area, and we've talked about AI quite a bit. The second area to talk about, to budget for, is cybersecurity and compliance. Um, and treat these as utilities, not projects, right? Because this goes on. You have to be on top of cybersecurity and compliance all the time. And I know cybersecurity is second now in terms of what the NASCIO says. It's the National Association of State CIOs is most important in 26. Cybersecurity is number two, and I would even say it's on par because it is the more critical aspect of your operation. So you need to budget for, again, within cybersecurity, governance and playbooks, NIST assessments, zero trust alignment, data protection, training, getting people ready, third-party risk management, invest in SIMs, uh, and and whole of government approach. Cybersecurity, yes, it is the CIO's job, but really, it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that you're being secure. And we've talked about this at length, but I just wanted to make the point that this has not gone away. Cybersecurity is still huge, and you need to budget and plan for how you're going to keep yourself resilient. Third is cloud infrastructure modernization, or cloud plus infrastructure modernization. You need to have a strategy for uh, how you go to the cloud. If you're still on premise, do you use a hybrid methodology, and how you're going to modernize your infrastructure? Because a lot of times what we see, this is another barrier to adoption of AI, is that your infrastructure is not there. You don't have the right um, network stack, you don't have the right resiliency, you don't have the right internet speeds. Happens, right? You may think that it's unheard of, but it happens. So you don't have the right nuts and bolts and the piping and the plumbing to take advantage of any of these new technologies. So investing in infrastructure is critical. So the 5 ways to do that is: number one is an honest infrastructure assessment. What do you have? What can be replaced? Go at it from an asset management perspective. How do you do this? Keep things current. How do you replace, repair? What's your cycle is really important. And that leads you to a multi-year roadmap. What are you going to replace when? When are you going to take some server to the cloud? What's your hybrid strategy? How do you train your people on the new stuff? And in cost governance, cloud costs can get out of hand if you don't pay attention. So how do you govern cost is really, really important. Question coming in. Robert Bell. Hey, Robert, do you believe we need a fundamental shift in how we approach adoption and problem solving? Too often we see organizations simply reacting to fix immediate issues. In your opinion, where is the right place for the public sector to focus its adoption strategy right now? Should the priority be citizen experience, internal operations, or administration, administrative ability? Robert, great question. I think it's all of the above, but it really depends on what your priorities are, where things are the most broken, where you're getting the most pain, what's your pain points. This isn't different from how we, sell into government, Robert. It's like, where are you hurting the most is where you should look and try to solve that problem, because that also gives you an immediate use case to go after, right? And the examples you presented, citizen experience, a lot of great products are out there doing citizen experience. Um, and it's a low hanging fruit because that data that is required to do citizen experience well is all out there. It's on your website, it's in the CRM. As long as it's not using any PII, you should be good. So the use case really depends on where your pain points are, and I think that's what you get to through assessments and maturity assessments and really understanding your organization. So the IT strategic planning process has a big workflow and automation component now. It's not just about software, it's not just about infrastructure, not just about cybersecurity. But what we do today is we'll find those opportunities for you through the assessments on what to tackle first, and then the order of things. So thanks for that question. Really, really insightful. Okay. And then the big one, ERP modernization. Number 4, budget for it. Really, it's time, right? Again, we talked about this. How do you make sure that you're weighing the risk versus reward of keeping your current systems versus going to something new? And a lot of times, what I've realized is most systems work most of the time, no matter what you're using. Um, they do the thing at a global level, unless they're broken. So why do people migrate ERPs? Why do they go from a Tyler to Workday or Workday to Oracle? Why do they do that? Because some process somewhere isn't up to their liking. Something is broken somewhere. And I'm not talking about the catastrophic failures. This is the 80% of the cases why agencies decide to move from one ERP platform to another is because they're trying to fix about 20% of what they're trying to do. And if 80% of your product works and you're trying to fix the 20%, what's the real strategy? What are you trying to go after? So having that clarity of mind, and if you're thinking about implementing a new ERP system, again, what do you budget for next year? Number one thing to do is an assessment. Again, I'm not saying that just because we do assessments, we'd love to do them for you, but do it yourself. Look at what you have. Where are the gaps? What workflows, what items within your workflows and processes don't work to your liking? What reporting are you not getting? Get a good inventory of what it is you're trying to replace, and then find the true cost of ownership, total cost of ownership. It's not, when you buy a SaaS product, you're not just buying licensing. You have to upgrade infrastructure. You have to change your security posture at times. You have to get more people. You have to implement this. There's costs involved. So what is the TCO over 10 years, over 5 years? And get ready for a multi-year implementation, because you know vendors might tell you this can be done in 6 months. Yeah, but that's their definition. What is the true timeline it takes to implement a major ERP product? That comes from an assessment, an ERP strategy, and making sure that you're ready for this transformation. And change management, I've talked about already, extremely critical, if not the most critical part of any ERP transformation. And the last one, we're running up on time, but we'll make it quick. Budget discipline. Um, here's the 8 mistakes to avoid, right? And as you budget for 26, 27, 8 mistakes to avoid. The first one is waiting too long to plan. Don't just throw a number in your budget sheet that goes to the CFO. Make sure you've had a long, you know, you've had a long time to think about what you're asking for, how much it's going to cost, what else have you considered. But don't wait too long. Don't wait for the last moment. Don't ask ChatGPT the night before it's due how much an ERP system costs, right? So waiting too long to plan, mistake number one. Two is lack of visibility. Don't have don't don't spend on don't have islands of spend. Look at it globally. What are we doing across the organization? Is a system being bought in some department that isn't justified? We have it somewhere else. Someone else is asking for something similar with a different sticker. Um, Ask those questions, because having islands of spend creates more problems than just the spend. You're creating more silos in terms of technology. Third is inflexible budgeting. Things are changing quickly. Have a mechanism for change. Have a mechanism for you to adopt. I know savvy CFOs have this, but when you create a budget, yes, it's set in stone on the day that it is approved by council or your board, but make sure you're in your head being flexible about what might need to change if the variables change. Um, if you're a CFO, don't budget for things that you don't have any operator input on. Get people that are leading your departments, that are experts in their field, to tell you what they need, justify it, and then budget for that. Fifth is underfunding critical areas. You you need to know what those critical areas are, and don't cut corners there. This is true in terms of all kinds of technology. And then six is reactive spending. You can't do it, right? In government, if you're reactively spending, that means you didn't plan for it. Of course, it's different when it is an emergency or something broke, but try to curb that. Seven is ignoring software bloat. And this is going to become a bigger problem as more SaaS tools become available, as more AI products become available that solve your pain points. Micro SaaS that solves that pain point that you've been having for 20 years. But it may solve the problem, but if you don't do it in terms of grand strategy across the organization, you're going to have software bloat. And then eight is no value capture. No matter what you do, how much money you spend, you have to make sure that there's value being delivered to your organization. So make sure there is a mechanism to identify what that value is going to be. And if you need help with any of this, planning, assessments, value capture, total cost of ownership, as you go into planning and budgeting season, please reach out to us. We've done this forever. We're really good at it. So as we wrap up, I'm going to take one or two last questions. Oh, there aren't any. Great. But let's, as we wrap up, I want to just give you this framework as we close off. Audit, align, plan early, build flexibility, and realize value. Run, grow, transform. You can't jump at AI products. Don't budget for AI products unless you've done the hard work of the readiness assessments, data structure, policies, change management, because that is a failing strategy if you just go product first. And remember, decisions you make today, in the next 6 to 12 months, in the next 6 months, less than 6 months, we're in budget season. Decisions you make between now and May and June are going to impact your organization for the next decade. So be mindful, take this seriously, and reach out if you need anything. And we'll see you again tomorrow will be on the webinar with the governance in AI for local government. And keep the questions coming. If we didn't get to anything, the chat's open, the comments are open, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.